Yeah.
I don't generally do social media, just because I'm a fairly introverted person, anyways. I don't really, So yeah, you won't be able to find me that easily on any social media. So
Hey, nothing wrong with that, honestly. Everybody's different, right? So maybe I think we're rolling right now. Okay, so maybe what we could do is you can tell us a little bit more about like, who you guys are, like the business, and then we'll go a little bit back on how it really started.
okay, I'm sure as you know, we are Tempea Natural Foods. We are manufacturers of tempeh here in Vancouver. We specialize in fresh tempeh. Um, the majority of the market that people have these days are either pasteurized or frozen. We serve the market with specifically fresh, just because I feel like that's a market that's not being filled right now, and I feel like it's the best way to showcase what tempeh really is. Because when I first came into the market, it was I see there was tempeh around, and it was around that time when the whole vegan fermented foods were really hot. Um, and during that time, I was a little, as an Indonesian, I felt a little like the product wasn't showcased properly. So that was one of the reasons why we got into the business. But yeah, right now we serve a number of retailers around Vancouver area. And we do have a number of food service clients as well.
Okay.
Kokomo, Field and Social, and, some of the a lot bigger vegan people. If you see tempeh on their menu, they're probably using our product.
Right. That's cool.
Yeah.
And like, I gotta ask you the question. I think it's a pretty big, basic question. Probably should ask that before. Like, what is tempeh?
Right, of course. Yeah, I shouldn't go into this.
Okay.
Like, with people knowing what tempeh is, it's when we started when we first started, it was tough trying to get people to understand what tempeh was. The best way to explain it to them is it's a meat alternative. It's all natural. We only use 3 ingredients in our product, which is the beans, water, and culture. So what it is it's a lot of people would describe it as like a soybean patty. That's what tempeh traditionally is. It's made out of soybeans. But these days tempeh can be made pretty much out of any beans. It does taste different and all kind of stuff. But traditionally it's soybeans, and it's as a protein alternative. It has a comparable amount of proteins to chicken breast, so it's just really high in proteins, and the product itself is very low in fat. It's very healthy. Soybeans have a bit of a bad rep previously, but tempeh, because it's a fermented product, it's has broken down a lot of those bad components. Without getting too technical about it.
That's fine. Yeah.
So if I had to sum up what tempeh is, I guess it's essentially a protein alternative.
Okay.
A vegan protein alternative.
Okay. And what, like, without getting too technical, like, what do you think is like the closest, like, if someone was gonna have a first bite of it, like, what would you describe it by itself, maybe?
Okay. So you're talking about consuming, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. So if the simplest way to prep tempeh for people, at least the way we would sample the product to people, the cleanest way would be to pan fry it, and just with a little bit of salt. And the flavor notes you would get from it is the first thing you would notice when you first bite into it is it's the nuttiness, but also the texture is not. Some people, a lot of people, when they first heard tempeh and soybeans, they would think, okay, is this tofu? Not quite. When you bite into tempeh, you can definitely get this like chewy. It's not like meat chewy, but it's sort of dense, and you can feel a texture in your mouth.
Okay.
And because it is soybeans and it was fried, the nuttiness really comes out, And the major thing with tempeh is that through the fermentation, it releases aromatic compounds. Essentially, because it is proteins, which is breaking down, it has similar compounds to meat. So it has that natural umami that you can get from consuming, beef or chicken. I mean, obviously the flavor will be different, but the umami components are definitely there.
Yeah. Interesting. Like, yeah, like I'm gonna be honest with you. Like, I didn't know anything about that until I saw you guys' business and I looked into it. I'm like, I should have tried it before. I'm sorry, I should have tried this.
No,
I definitely will though after this. I'm really curious on trying itself because obviously you guys have a bunch of different dishes and we'll get into that later on. But maybe just to change things up a bit, like, can you tell us a little bit more on how the business started? Like, I know it was part of like a project, I think. I don't know if that was the first start of it. But like, tell us a little bit more about like, you and your brother and then how like the rest of the team met. Like, how did that all start pretty much?
Okay, I guess the best way would be to go back to the project, the school project. I was attending BCIT at the time. During our second year, I was taking food technology. In our second year, it was part of the program to do a food research and development course. And part of it was that we had to attend this competition, which I don't think they do now. Because of COVID.
I'm not sure, yeah.
But we used to do this competition that we have to enter as part of the project. It was part of the CIFST, which is the Canadian Institute of Food Science and Technology. They were sponsoring the project through this competition. Nope, actually, sorry, that was incorrect. It was Pulse Canada. Pulse Canada wanted us to, like, and part of trying to push the marketing for pulses. Pulses are generally like things like soybeans, lentils, chickpeas. Those are the type of beans that are considered pulses. So they were funding us, funding the project for this and the whole competition. And we were really struggling with figuring out what to make because, the idea was that we had to meet key criteria. It has to be within the current food trends, which during that time, fermentation vegan was a big thing. But at that time, I was we did try a lot of stuff like we did spring rolls and I think one of my classmates did roasted pulse to make into tea or something like that. But I noticed that no one did anything fermented, and being Indonesian, I was familiar with the tempeh making process. So that was the first time I ever tried making tempeh out of chickpea and a mixture of chickpea and lentils. Unfortunately, I can't use soy, but it's okay. It was a fun challenge, anyways. But from there. The first time I made it, of course, it was kind of gross. I've never made tempeh.
Yeah. So how would you make it? Like, obviously it's not like making kombucha. Like, is it like you start in a jar and then you do all these different things? Like, how does that like?
So the tempeh making process of itself involves it's really simple steps. All you have to do is boil it, and then you would dehull it, basically remove the beans of the skin. And then you would boil it again, and then you essentially would dry it, and you incorporate it with the culture in it, and you incubate it. It's that straightforward. Yeah. But it's just very delicate and finicky in terms of the temperature requirements, the humidity requirements. There's just a lot of things that back then we really didn't know about. So the tempeh making process was sort of pass-fail. Sometimes we made it well, sometimes we didn't make it well. But the deadline for the project was coming soon. But whatever the case, we tried to cover it up a little bit by turning it into chicken nuggets. But also because that was sort of like a marketing thing, right? With a product that people aren't familiar with, it was easier to even though the project the idea was that it was easier to sell to the consumers if we were able to sell to them in a format that was more familiar. So we made tempeh nuggets.
Yeah, I saw
And,
that. That
yeah,
looked good.
and that was a project. With what little time we had, we sort of just barely got it done.
Right. And how, like, not to get too technical, like, what was the time? Tell us a little bit more about the project. Like, did you have, like, obviously you had a time frame. Like, what was the time frame like? Like, how many trials did it take you guys to figure that out?
We had 3 months, exactly the span of, a course, a semester, right? We had about 3 months to fill in the project, and then the last week we had to present in front of all these judges, which were food industry. There were food manufacturers, one chef, and a couple other people.
Just like a lot of people in the food industry.
Yeah, it was pretty daunting.
Yeah.
Trying to sell something that was a project to these people.
But you guys got some good feedback from it on that round, I think.
Yeah,
right?
it was very surprising. People actually thought it was chicken, which was surprising in itself, because I know what it was, and maybe because I've consumed too many of it, so I know that it's not chicken, right? In my tongue, it's not chicken. But when people first tasted it, I guess the first thing that they correlated to was chicken.
Right.
That was kind of interesting.
Oh, that's cool. And then so like you guys won that side of things in the competition. How did that feel?
I mean, not to be too.
It's okay. You can be humble. It's okay.
Yeah. It was actually, it felt really, really exciting. Especially one of the judges after that competition, he came to us and basically told us, "You guys should turn this into a real business." And when he said that, I was like, "Holy, we must really have something here, to be able to impress someone who is in the food industry, who has his own business and have gone through the and know the food landscape." So it was pretty encouraging. At that time, I think I was in a team with my business partner, Ariella, who started the business together with me. And of course, we sort of had to because, winning that competition meant a lot because I don't think if we ever won that or even was approached or given any sort of push, I don't think we would have done it at all. We probably wouldn't have this business now.
Hey guys, quick word from our sponsors here. So this episode is brought to you by Olive and Ciboulette lobster oil. So what this is pretty much an olive oil, except it's lobster infused. What can you use lobster oil with? Well, let me tell you right now, you can use it for salad dressing, sauces. You can pan-sear with it. You can marinate with it. You can pretty much do anything you want with olive oil, except this is lobster infused. If you want to check us out, you can check us out at www.oliveandciboulette.com. And that's pretty much it. Thank you so much, and back to the show. Right. And what do you think you would be doing instead if that was in the case? 'Cause that's a pretty specific course to get into, going into food. What are the different routes you can go in there? What would have been something you'd want to do or pursue?
Myself, I think I would have gone into food product development or research, or because at that time I was my passion for food generally came about because of my love for science and art, and back then there wasn't this molecular gastronomy stuff. At least when I was going into when I was studying to be a chef.
Yeah.
So I was basically just trying to find the bridge between the two, where I can still use, some intellect and sort of bridge the gap to also be able to still play with some artsy stuff,
Right. That's the culinary arts. It's pretty artsy. So so you guys get the news that you won this contest or this competition. Someone a pretty big shot tells you you guys should do a business. What are the next steps after that? What do you guys do? What was the next the movement, I should say?
Well, let's just say that. So after that competition, we went to that was the regionals, and then we went to. We brought the product to Ontario, I think. Quebec. We went to Quebec, and we did the competition with a whole bunch of other schools from different provinces. Unfortunately, we didn't win that one. But when we got back, this judge that approached us before, he was one of the professors. He was one of the part-time professors for one of the courses there, which I actually didn't take. But he also owns a business. He owns a brewery down in Canby, which I can't remember the name of right now.
That's okay.
So we basically hit him up, and we wanted to ask him, so you said, we can get this started. Do you have any advice on how, we were students, right? We didn't know what the hell we were doing.
Yeah.
Even then, the steps itself was it wasn't really straightforward. Like, there's no website or book that just says, this is how I start a business. But he did give us a lot of good advice. He did give us a lot of tips on who to look at and what to look for. Luckily, there was the BCFPA, I think, the British Columbia Food Processors Association. There were some helpful tools there. I also took another part-time course at BCIT, which was entrepreneurship. Basically teaches how to, write a business plan, all that kind of stuff, because you kind of need that in order to start a business, right? So we went through all that, and me and my business partner, Ariella, we just sort of tackled things one at a time. She did a lot of the, WorkSafe BC stuff. She did a lot of the food safety things. And I did more of the business side. I started with incorporating the company. But okay, so we got to a point where, okay, so we got things set up. So now what?
What year was that? Sorry. Maybe.
That was about 6 years ago in December, I believe.
Okay.
Yeah. In December, we incorporated, and then we didn't know what to do after that.
Okay.
Basically, theoretical part was over. We got the company established, and then, that was when, I don't quite remember how we met Andrea, but Andrea, she owned a commissary kitchen in North Vancouver. It was a unique space because most commissary kitchens here, the way they work is basically you would rent like a square footage of the warehouse, and then you work in that spot. You have your tables, you have a station. Her kitchen, however, was done more of a, you rent a certain amount of time to rent the whole kitchen. And that sort of worked out for us in what we had to do. Because first, we don't know what the hell we were doing or what we needed. And second, our process would take a considerable amount of space. So Andrea really helped us with that. And not only that, she also runs a side business with trying to help small business get started. So she was really helpful at that point. And this was, I think this was approaching March of the year later.
Are we talking like 2019, 2018-ish?
It would have been 6 years, I think 5 years. 2022. So it would have been I want to say 2018, March of 2018.
Okay.
I think that was when we first hit the market that summer. So yeah, that was one of the things. So Andrea suggested that we should do the markets. Of course, we sort of know that's the first avenue that we have to go to. Like any small business, it's always best to go to farmers markets, and they are very supportive of small businesses who just got started. A lot of the friends that we know who also started the business around that time, they were all in the farmers markets, and it was a really exciting time to start growing at that time. Before COVID and everything, it was just it was fun.
Yeah. What did you enjoy about it so much?
It was, for me, it was a really brand new experience, and we had this product that we know tasted good. We know that the community would like. And for me, it was just like it was very, very fulfilling to be able to bring something good to people. That's sort of why I went to the culinary arts, is because I enjoy feeding people. It's kind of like it's very satisfying to see people consuming your food, and they like it and they enjoy it, and it makes them happy and it lights them up. And when we first started, sure, there were a lot of negative comments. There were some negative comments. People didn't know what it was. People was a little skeptical, but there were a lot of people who took into it pretty well. But of course, not only that, the environment in which we first started the farmers market, we met a lot of people who also was going through this journey. A lot of the small companies that you see in the farmers markets, the ones that don't sell agricultural products, vegetables, they're usually the local small food producers in Vancouver. And I got to know a lot of people from there, and that was fun too. And we would trade each other's products. We get to try a lot of new things, and that was also, as a chef, that's always exciting for me.
Yeah.
But in general, the startup experience, there was a lot of good, but there was a lot of bad stuff too. When we first started making the product, there was a lot of failures. During the first 6 months, we produced maybe 20 a day. And even then, 20 little small
pieces. Oh, sorry to interrupt. Yeah, okay, 20 pieces.
And that was difficult for us. We didn't have the tools that we have now. The process took the same amount as we do now, but now we would make 200 to 400 packages in the same amount of time that we used to make 20. So it was quite an improvement. But not only that, those 20 sometimes did not turn out well. We had days where Andrea was nice enough that she said we were able to book the entire night shift because no one wanted to work nights, right? So we actually booked the entire night shift, and I was able to sit there, and sometimes I would just watch the fermentation.
Like the whole process?
Sometimes I would just, go there and sit and watch. I would be on my laptop doing whatever, and then sometimes I would take a look because during fermentation, the next 36 to 48 hours is very crucial. That's when you have to be really spot on how high the temperature is, how high the humidity is. That's sort of the thing that you have to experiment with. So a lot of days I would sit in front of this bread proofer and just, watch it and hope it turns out.
Try not to fall asleep, I guess.
Well, funny thing was, on the big day of the competition, just to go back a little bit, on the big day of the competition, I was watching the same thing, but on a small dehydrator. I was watching the same thing. But I did fall asleep, and I lost half of the product because it's overheated. Like, it was during a crucial time. With the fermentation, there's going to be like the first 24 hours, nothing's going to happen. But then suddenly, the next 12 hours to 24 hours, there's like a huge range of things going on. Suddenly, things started turning white and things started heating up. Unfortunately, when that started, I fell asleep. So for our competition, I lost actually half of our product, but luckily I was able to salvage some, which was, but yeah, that was the concern. Especially when we first started the market, the farmers market, we failed miserably. So it was, I think our first market was on Saturday, I believe. And it was Thursday, and I found out that all the product had failed. They were overheated. They were rotten.
Is that because are they in like temperature like ovens or like fermentation machines? And,
yep.
Okay.
So they're in a bread proofer, but the thing with bread proofers is that they can't lower the temperature itself. They can heat up, but they can't cool down.
Okay.
And the important thing with tempeh is that because it's a live fermentation, and primarily because it's mold, they tend to be able to heat up once they start becoming active, and because of that, they have the potential to kill themselves, which is kind of a stupid thing, but
That's what it is.
but yeah, they have a tendency to kill themselves if we don't watch them well. So we have to really keep an eye on them, and because of that, we lost all of our product, and we were already exhausted trying to prep for our first market, all the marketing stuff and whatever. But at that point, when we found out, it was me and my younger brother at that time. He was here to help us get things started, because my mom was pretty proud at the fact that I was able to start a business. So he sent my little brother here to help me out.
Oh.
But me and my little brother, me and my younger brother, it was about 3 a.m. in the morning. We were exhausted. We found out things had died. We were like, okay, what are we gonna do here? We can't really, our first market is starting. We can't really, fail the first day, right? It would have been a really bad experience. So we just sort of grit our teeth, and we went back to the kitchen and spent another 8 hours or so making another batch of tempeh, and hopefully everything turns out. Luckily, we just barely got it there. We did sort of have to skirt some rules, because secondly, if you want to sell tempeh at the market, we had to properly cool it down, and it has to be maintained chilled. But we didn't have time to chill anything. We basically, that morning for the market, my brother took the van, packed everything in the car, and then he set up at the market, and I rushed all the way to the kitchen and grabbed whatever I can that was fermenting. So everything was nice and warm and
fresh.
Yeah, so I just put it in a box and sold it that way, and hopefully no one was coming to check or anything.
Nice. And how was that? Like that first day, like you go through like an all-nighter, like stressed out of your mind, and you delivered on what you want to do. How was the results out of the first farmers market?
We were all exhausted, but honestly, the joy in being able to actually be at the market and sell what we want to sell, and everything was okay. At least in the front of it was okay. It was really exciting. At that point, I wasn't even tired anymore. We were just so happy that things worked out. And, a lot of the customers that came, they were really nice. People in Vancouver, it's always nice. And the feedback we got was amazing. Almost everyone liked the product. We sold out the first day. We weren't even sure how much to make. So I think we sold out in about an hour and a half.
Hour and a half.
Yeah.
What do you think, like, if we could, I know it's been a while, but like how much, like what's the quantity you would say, like, were you selling them at the time of the farmer's market? Because you're first time in like like plastic tins of 3 or like boxes of 20? Like how did you guys do that?
We still sold it in the same type of size and packaging that we do now. Okay. Yeah, it's about a block of 200 grams.
Okay.
It's about that size.
Nice.
About an inch thick. And I think the usual market days these days we would sell roughly about 100 to 200. Okay. Back then, since we didn't know anything, I think we brought about 40. But even then, for a new product that just first entered the market,
sold out.
Yeah, it sold out in an hour and a half, so it was something. Yeah,
that's great. That's something to be proud of. So first market goes well, sell out. Like, what was the next move? Like, was it just still you and your first business partner at the time?
Yeah. So at that time, I think, unfortunately, my business partner had to work at a bigger. She was working as a quality inspector, quality assurance person at one of the big bakery manufacturer here in Vancouver. just because she still needed to get her PR. Unfortunately, being self-employed means that it won't fulfill the conditions for you to get a PR.
Right.
But she still helped out when she could on the weekends and stuff, and the market was the weekend. I think back then the person who helped me out the most was my girlfriend at that time, and also my younger brother. My older brother, I believe he was around, but he was also doing his own. He was also working at a plastics research company that does biodegradable plastics. So he wasn't on the Tempeh wagon all the way yet.
Yeah.
It wasn't until later that he joined in. So yeah, at that time was me. The active ones were me, my younger brother, and my girlfriend. And we did the best we could. But eventually, when things started growing, Ariella quit her job. She got a PR. She quit her job, so she was able to do this full time. And I think at some point, unfortunately, my brother's company, the company he was working for, didn't end up working well. So he left, and then that's when he also joined us. So I think it was about a year later.
Okay.
But that was when all of us were together. That's when we started growing quickly. Because before that, we were just mainly farmers market because we didn't really know how to approach sales and marketing.
How to scale it.
It was difficult, and the manpower was also very limited. 3 people back then was sort of just enough to barely make what we needed.
Mm-hmm.
And without the tools that we have now, it took a long time to get things done.
Yeah, and how did you guys grow your business? Because obviously, word to mouth, especially in farmers market, must spread pretty fast. And I feel like the foodies are one of the true people that really follow. They're like a real cult, I think.
Yeah.
Which is amazing. How did you guys step up to that next level of production, I should say, or when did you guys really start vamping it up a bit?
So we know that marketing was going to be a big thing for us because the product was new. We really need to put in a lot of budget to marketing, trying to get people to understand what Tempeh is, trying to get people to find ways for them to be able to use it in ways that they're familiar with. So we did Veg Expo, I think that year. Nope, the year after, when everyone basically came together. Yeah. We did Veg Expo.
What is that?
Veg Expo is it's a yearly expo here. I think it's the next one is happening in May, I believe. It's an expo for vegetarian, vegan food products.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, if you're ever around, it's I can send you. We can probably send you an invite.
Cool, I'd love to go. Yeah, it'd be cool to see that.
We do get to give out free tickets to couple people. Okay. But I think the biggest group that helped us out was Picant Marketing. I think at that time they were also getting started. It was just 2 people, I believe, back then. They really helped us a lot with our marketing. That is their business, right? So they did a lot of our social media content, and they basically introduced us to a lot of people that would eventually help us grow the business. Word of mouth is great, but it only reaches so far, right? At some point, you do have to put up some money to get a lot of these things. Which I mean, if you're short on budget, obviously you can do it yourself, but you won't have the kind of connections that a bigger marketing agency would be able to. And luckily back then they were still small, so it was a little more friendly in terms of price.
Good timing.
Yeah. But I believe we grew up together, so we had a good relationship. That's how we started approaching stuff like bloggers, and I think we got a couple of radio interviews here and there. We got, but even though I said word of mouth can only go so far in the Vancouver community, especially in the vegan community, it is a big thing. Whenever we get someone talking about a product, it does help us a lot.
Yeah.
Because the vegan community first knows each other. But not only that, a lot of our customers that end up to be hardcore fans of ours, which still exists now, they definitely helped us spread it along. Because there's this one person who used to our first market. I think she attended our first market, which was at Mount Pleasant. She is still one of our biggest supporters right now. Before she would buy for herself, but these days she would buy bulk amounts for her family and friends and everyone. She basically put an order through her, and then she buys from us, and we give her a discount. But I mean, things like that definitely helps a lot.
Right. And like you said, you mentioned a few stores. Like, how did you guys start going into that? And what's the process of getting into stores? Like, I don't know what size of the stores you're getting into. Obviously, like the big ones, the not most challenging, but there's different processes. Like, can you name us maybe like a store or two, or like a specific store? Like, tell us the process on how to get into one.
So there's a lot of small local stores in Vancouver. They're going to be a little easier to get into because they're operated. They're sort of like a mom and pop shop. They're operated privately. Those kind of places, they're very approachable. They're very willing to support local. I think one of the bigger ones to begin with was Be Fresh. They definitely helped us a lot with our retail sales in the beginning. But for any local producers, they're definitely the first ones you want to approach. Sure, they're small, and then their sales aren't going to be like a big chunk. But in terms of trying to get your product out there, there's a lot of them, and you can basically hit all of them. And essentially, that's going to be one of the bigger things. And doing sampling in those places are also going to be big. So there's a vegan market in Chinatown. We've been selling to them for a long time, almost since we started. But I believe before even retail, our first customers, I think, was food service.
Okay.
So what we did first was we looked at all the vegan companies around town, find the ones that were using tempeh, and we basically offered them, would you like to try our product? Our product is different. Our product is fresh. We can sell it to you at a cheaper price, or whatever the case. And I think that was Nam. Nam was the first one. And, after that, we offered it to all the other vegan restaurants in town that potentially could use our product. We offered them a lot of samples, whatever size and shape, and they want to request. We'll try to accommodate them. Those sales definitely helped us a lot because food service sales are our biggest buyers right now. I think our retail sales only hit about 20%. But going back to the retail side, after we offered for the smallest markets, so smaller retail stores, that was when we got a little ambitious, and I think the big one we first sold to was Whole Foods.
Wow.
Whole Foods was really, really supportive of our product. I think Whole Foods is a big local supporter if you go to Whole Foods, there's a lot of products that would label local. There's a lot of them if you go to Whole Foods, so they are a big supporter of local.
What was that like? Those must have been pretty good news to find out when you got into Whole Foods.
We actually got approached by their buyer at Veg Expo, and I think my brother spoke to them in length about the requirements, about everything.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was really exciting to know that Whole Foods really wanted our product.
Right.
that's when we start getting the push to, okay, Whole Foods want us, so now we get a rush on trying to make proper packaging and all that kind of stuff. Because before we basically did it in paper wrap, and then we did a little twine with a label, very, very scrappy kind of thing, very
different,
handmade kind of thing. And then that's when we approached a designer to get our package done and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, getting Whole Foods really pushed our retail sales quite a bit.
I'm sure.
Whole Foods can be alone. They basically could sell the equivalent amount of all the other smaller retailers that we sell to combined.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow, that's definitely a good client to have.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so, trying to switch things a little bit here, like, what about like, making different types? Because I looked on your website, you guys had different like recipes or different things or different flavors. Like, who designs that? Who's part of that?
So that's mainly my job.
Okay.
I would be the one to test out these different things. Before, my partner Ariella was also involved in doing it. But we would just go into the kitchen and we would try out different kind of beans. We tried rice, quinoa. Basically, we tried a whole bunch of stuff. Anything that we could make. In terms of process, we basically just try everything.
Yeah.
But tempeh itself is, because of the fermentation, it's a complicated product. It's not something where, I can make soup with anything I want. Mm-hmm. Sure, it might not taste good, but I can make it. But with tempeh, that's not always the case. The amount of proteins, the amount of fiber, the amount of sugars and all that kind of stuff in the raw material itself has to be suitable, or else it won't turn out well. Like Indonesia had this problem back then with a tempeh they made with coconut.
Wow.
Unfortunately, coconut, when fermented the same way, they produce a certain kind of toxin, which is incredibly deadly. So those are the kind of dangers that we kind of have to look into. Sometimes we do have to research, things like, have this been done before? Is it going to be safe to consume? Is it kind of stuff?
And you're also like doing the whole process, like you're putting your risk at life as well. Maybe some kind of smell or odor, or like some kind of chemical reaction to some things. Well, I never thought about that. Yeah.
Yeah. So interestingly enough, I have gotten sick once or twice, but especially right now, we're testing this.
Is this behind the scenes stuff? Like, is this first time?
Yeah, it's gonna be the first time that it would be, but people will hear it. I think.
Awesome.
So we're testing out something called in Indonesia we call it Tempeh busuk. Literal translation would be rotten tempeh.
Rotten tempeh.
Rotten tempeh is used as a flavor enhancer. They are applied the same way you would sort of like shrimp paste or something like that, along those lines. Essentially, it works the same way. Something like shrimp paste is essentially shrimp that's left rotten, and then the fermentation itself would allow the fish to continue until it breaks down to its rotten components.
Yeah.
That's usually what the hydrolyzation, not to get too sciencey, but it breaks down components into flavor compounds, and that's where you get the umami from it. So tempeh can work the same way because it is still soybeans are still proteins.
Right.
So it has similar behaviors, and people in Indonesia have been using this rotten tempeh or overripe or overaged tempeh to use for making stuff like curries and there's like a coconut dish that they make which uses this a lot, but they use this as replacement for I suppose shrimp paste.
Okay, interesting.
So I've been wanting to go into this trying to use this rotten tempeh. and hopefully it would succeed in creating a vegan replacement for something like shrimp paste.
Oh, that could be a pretty big thing here.
Yeah, hopefully it would be. And I don't believe there is an organic product that has similar qualities right now, especially not one that's vegan.
Right.
So yeah, hopefully it would meet some market.
Yeah. Well, you just got to do it and then figure it out as you go, and I'm sure you'll find a market like you guys did with your product right now. So what are your like any big plans for like 2023 or like big goals, or maybe there's goals that you guys want to target or a line of products? Like what's that looking for you guys in the future? Yeah,
so we just moved into our bigger facility, to our own facility in Richmond.
Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you.
It's a big move to do that. Yeah.
We just started this year, but it is a big move. It is a very scary move because it's a lot of investment, and
game on now.
Yeah, we really need to start going at it really quickly because the size of the space, we can practically make 10 times the amount that we do now. And meeting that kind of quantities is going to be tough because the market, unfortunately, Vancouver isn't the biggest market for this kind of product. It has a lot of hardcore fans, but something like Seattle or even Toronto would have been better.
We'll get there, right?
Yeah,
slowly but surely.
Yeah, we do have strategies in place that would make sure that we don't go into bankruptcy at this point because, but right now we are still in the red just because the fees for maintaining such a big facility is a lot higher.
But that's the reality of things, right?
Yeah, that is how you kind of have to do it.
Look, I have a family business. It's very small. We're not there. But, obviously when you're creating a business, it takes time. And, as long as you have somewhat of a strategy and a plan and a good team, which I'm sure you have, you guys are gonna get through it. You guys are making big moves, to be honest with you, to get your own facility. That's one thing. You're with Whole Foods. I'm sure only great things will come to you guys, right? And just being a game of patience as well, right? Having obviously speeding up things, but also just knowing that it's going to work out for you guys.
Yeah, there is a lot of hard work into it, but there is some degree of luck. I do believe that's involved.
Yeah,
because I don't think we could have gotten to where we are without having some luck involved. Whether it's the buyer for Whole Foods, it happens to just be a Veg Expo that just happens to be there, or being able to actually make the deadline to make the tempeh that we were at,
right.
Going to the market. But it is big and it is scary, and
yeah, we'll get there. What would be kind of the final question here? What would be a piece of advice to someone that would want to start a business, especially in the food and beverage industry? What's something that you've learned? What's been your biggest lesson, you think, throughout that whole process till now?
We've had times when things were so tough that the end of the month was coming. I had to make payments. We were really, really short. I had to look all over my house just to find, do I have a dollar coin slipped in the couch, under the couch somewhere, just to make sure that I have enough money, just to be able to pay. And it takes a lot of resilience. There are times when things are going to be hard. The important thing is just keep pushing through, and you can worry about the things that are going to come. But for the most part, just put that aside. When you are in that moment, put it aside and just complete the task that you have to. And don't worry about the problems yet. Okay. Do the task that you have to, and then once you complete that, then you can worry about,
future ones.
Yeah, but basically just keep your eye on a task and don't get too much into your head. Don't start thinking about, oh, I have to worry about that now. Oh, what if I can't make something next month or whatever the case? Just do what you have in front of you and just keep at it one at a time. And eventually, things will work out. Things will, tackle the problems one at a time, and it will work.
I think that's a great piece of advice. It's easy to get into your head and get lost in the process and just give up, and then And just, yeah, it's unfortunate, but I think that's pretty good advice. Kind of to wrap things up, like how can people like find you guys like on social media? Maybe like share your Instagram and how people can find you guys. If you know that one, if you know the social media handle.
Yeah. So I believe our social media handle is Tempea Foods. I think.
It's okay. We'll find it in just a second. It's okay. It's fine. It's not a big deal. It's gonna be in the handle anyways on YouTube and our Instagram.
Yeah. I mean, if you search Tempea Natural Foods on Google, the first thing that's come up is going to be us.
Yeah, that's true.
I think generally if you're in Vancouver and you search Tempeh, one of the first top 3 would have been us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Foods. There we go.
Yeah. I think I got lucky with that one.
We'll edit that part out so the business partners don't see that. No,
just to add, we are going to be expanding our product lines. We used to make this vegan pate based off tempeh. We're going to be continuing that. I know there's a lot of our customers that is waiting. We only did that for a feature one winter, and people has been always asking, when are you guys making it again? So we'll be making it soon, and we're making it available. And we're also going to be launching a few new tempeh products and a couple. We're going to be testing out into snack foods, tempeh chips, and so good things to come, hopefully.
Cool. Awesome. Well, thanks again for coming on, guys. And thank you for watching. And hope you enjoyed yourself. And hope you guys learned something new as well. I'm sure I did as well. And thank you guys. And see you guys next time on the Table 604 podcast. There you go. That's it. Thank you so much for doing this. This is really cool. Thank you for opening up.